Welcome to the Perspectives with Catherine Toon podcast.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Perspectives with Catherine Toon on the Grace Awakening Network. And I have a really encouraging message for you today, a comforting message that we need. And I labeled it Stirring Up Your Unstoppable. But when I'm talking about this is kind of the royal we. This is you in Christ. So I don't want to make it sound like we in and of ourselves have it all together, that this is a promise for us in and of ourselves, that there's something inherent in us apart from God that is unstoppable, because there's nothing, number one, there's nothing apart from God that truly is a thing. You are not a thing. You are not an entity apart from God. And so I just wanted to explain the quotes that I'm using. But we live in a world that is crazy, and it is increasingly up-ramping in the crazy with fear and turmoil and confusion and instability. Things are being shaken, and there's a shaking that's happening because wickedness is coming to the surface and just exalting itself. And then there's a shaking that's happening because God is exposing wickedness to heal it. And so it just looks like a mess. It's kind of like, your refrigerator that you have let kind of go to seed. You've got rotten, moldy things and disgusting cultures going on, and you just it stinks, and you kind of shut the door and run away. But you realize, man, at some point I got to take it all out. And it's the taking it all out and finding all the fuzzy things on the food. And what was that dropped behind there? And this splattered, and it's totally gross. And you're in the middle of it, and it's a mess, right? And you're like, oh, I hope this works out. And it's a pushing through to clean all that mess out, so that you clean the fridge, you clean the casing, you throw out the junk, you put in the stuff that's good, maybe you add some new stuff that's good, and boom, you have a restored refrigerator. Same thing with your closet. Well, what's he doing in us and in the cosmos? This is what God is doing. And God is unstoppable. So I just wanted to explain that a little bit, and let's dive in, because I think we're very familiar with the struggle. We're feeling it. We're feeling the pressure. We're feeling the anxiety. We're feeling the fear, and nobody has answers. The institutions that we're kind of looking to for answers. And let me just say this, if you think this is in a political party, let me just disabuse you. No, there's not a political party in the US or otherwise that's got the lock. So you follow your conscience, you pray about it, you vote for whoever. So please vote. But understand that's not where we put our hope in. What is God doing in the midst? Okay. So let's talk about kind of the struggle, what we're feeling. Okay. Romans 8:22-24 in the New Revised Standard Version, updated edition. We know the whole creation has been groaning. Can you feel the groaning? We are groaning. We are travailing together as it suffers the pains of labor. Okay, there's a suffering. Anybody feeling like, ow? Okay. And not only the creation, but we ourselves. So creation's groaning, travailing in pain, right? In travail. Okay, travail. Anybody who's gone through labor understands it. Guys, if you've had a kidney stone, apparently that's a good approximation. Okay, you just hit the deck. All right, it's just a thing. It's just, thank God it's temporary. And not only creation, but we ourselves. So we're groaning, we're travailing, we're in labor, who have the first fruits of the Spirit. We have the Spirit in us, grown inwardly, while we wait for adoption, the redemption of our bodies. So the bottom line is everything's complete in Christ. It's complete and being worked out, and it's the now and not yet. And we're in the middle of that, and we don't like that. We want it just to be like totally good, right? But we're in process. And so New Revised Standard Updated Edition talks about that in verse 24. For in hope we're saved. Okay. We are saved. Do that, like past tense, right? Now, hope that is seen is not hope, for who hopes for what one already sees. So we have hope in the fullness of our salvation, saved, healed, delivered, restored, the whole thing, right? But we haven't seen it yet. I want to take you to the Message version, which is really gorgeous with this. It says, all around us, we observe a pregnant creation. Okay. The difficult times of pain throughout the world are simply birth pangs. Okay. Now, I have to say this, a pang, I think we're not in pain mode. I think we're in travailing mode. There's a time in labor and delivery called transition. This is when most women I know, including myself, with all the bravado that we had and all the strength we had, just really want to give up. And this is why you need people around you to say, don't give up. I remember when I was first delivering Veronica, I was like, my mantra's like, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't, and I'm strong. Okay, whatever. And everybody's just do it. Okay, I'm doing it, but I can't do this. And I needed coaches. I needed people to pour into me and walk me through it, because it was that much mind splitting pain for me. Now, I celebrate everybody who has had this pain-free delivery. This was not my experience. Not that it can't be your experience. Do not take my experience. I remember there was one time when I was delivering Robert. He had this gigantic head that should not come out of a human body. I'm just saying. And it was kind of funny because the midwife was like, oh, I could just tell. She was like, yeah. She told me afterwards, I wasn't going to tell you how big that was, because I didn't know. But there was one time I just refused to push. And then I realized that's insanity. So I just pushed and just whatever. And you know what? It all comes out. And then you have more children. It's just a thing. It is a miracle. But every woman that I'm talking to that's gone through labor, maybe not a pain-free labor, but just labor, can attest to this sense of feeling like you want to quit, like, I can't do it. It's this hard. And I think many of us are feeling in travail, and the pains are getting fast and furious and more fast and more furious. And, it's not fun, but the baby is worth everything. Okay. Hopefully someone can relate to that. And guys, I hope I didn't weird you out, but you are mature. You can do this thing. Okay. Got it. We we have the first fruits of the Spirit. We groan inwardly while we wait for the adoption, the redemption of our bodies, the fullness of the redemption of all things. For in hope we were saved. Now, hope that is seen is not hope, for who hopes for what one already sees? So the Message translation was saying, the difficult times of pain throughout the world are simply birth pangs. That's where I took objection to this translation. But it's only around us. But it's not only around us, it's within us. So we're feeling this within. The Spirit of God is arousing us within. We're also feeling the birth pangs. Those sterile and barren bodies of ours are yearning for full deliverance. This is why waiting does not diminish us any more than waiting diminishes a pregnant mother. We are enlarged in the waiting. Boom. Okay, let me just help you. Thank you for bringing this out. So we are enlarged in the waiting. So sometimes we're like, God, why are we waiting? Are you just why would you do this to us? Are you a cosmic jerk? Or we're just confused, right? Why is it taking so long? Because he's enlarging the thing that is most precious, which is us. We're the thing that matters most. He's enlarging his bride. He's enlarging his church. This is our finest hour. It just does not feel good. Okay. We are enlarged in the waiting. We, of course, don't see what is enlarging us, but the longer we wait, the larger we become and the more joyful in our expectancy. And this is what I want you to grab a hold of, becoming joyful in the expectancy. I don't know where it's coming. I don't know how it's coming. I don't know how it's going to go down. I don't know what kind of crap we're going to have to go through in the process, but I'm joyful in the expectancy. Okay, so in the struggle, we get help with the struggle. Let's go to Romans 8:26 through 27. I'm reading this from the New Revised Standard Version, updated edition. It says, likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. For when we don't know how to pray, anybody baffled, like, I have no idea how to pray, right? I mean, I'm just saying, if you know how to pray, come find me, right? A lot of times. And then sometimes I just know, right? It's the Spirit, right? For we do not know how to pray as we ought, but the very Spirit intercedes with groanings too deep for words. And God, who searches the hearts, knows what is in the mind of the Spirit and intercedes for us. For the saint, you're a saint, baby. You're getting 24/7 intercession according to the will of God. Let me read this in the Message translation. This is really beautiful. Meanwhile, the moment we get tired in the waiting, anybody? Any takers? Okay. Okay. God's Spirit is right alongside us, helping us along. If we don't know how to pray or what to pray, it doesn't matter. Anybody feel better? Okay, I feel better. He does our praying in and for us, making prayer out of our wordless sighs, our aching groans. He knows us better than we know ourselves, knows our pregnant condition, and keeps us present before God. Isn't that refreshing? Isn't that encouraging? Right? Let's go to God's answer. So the struggle and the help in the struggle, and then let's talk about God's mastery in a fallen cosmos. Let's go to Romans 8:28. Yay. It says, and we know that God causes all things, everything, all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. Let me read this in the Message translation. He knows us better than he knows ourselves, knows our pregnant condition, and keeps us present before God. That's why we can be so sure that every detail in our lives of love for God is worked into something good. See, we're looking to the right person because we can't save ourselves. We can't, in our own strength, do anything. But in our union with Christ, it's worked out for good. Now, just in case some of us, you may have been latched on to that. Oh, okay. So things are going to work out for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. And then you think, boom, there's the loophole. Okay, this is why it doesn't apply to me or doesn't apply to so-and-so, right? Well, how do I know I'm called? How do I know they're called? I may think I'm called, but they're definitely not called. Or they may be called, but I'm not called. Well, let's just kind of look and see if there is a loophole. Okay. Are there loopholes in God's redemption plan? The answer is no. But let me give you some yummy stuff to chew on. Ready? Romans 8:29 through 30, New Revised Standard Version, update edition. For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to become conformed to the image of his son, so that he would be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. Okay. And those whom he predestined, he also called. And those he called, he also justified. And those whom he justified, he also glorified. So I want you to get the chain of events. Those God foreknew. Let me just ask you, is there a human being that God did not foreknow? Kind of slipped behind God's back? Because this is really crucial. It's all based on this. For those God foreknew. So who did God foreknew? Did he foreknow you? Or did you just kind of slip through the back door? Whoop! Ooh! Wow! What happened? Was there a son and daughter created? Oh, I didn't know that one. Okay, well, I guess we'll let it go. No. God foreknew everybody. If you are a human being, you are foreknown. This is crucial because everything hangs on that. For those God foreknew, he predestined to be conformed into the image of God, right? He predestined. So you are foreknown, you are predestined to be conformed into the image of God. You are called. He also called. Foreknown, predestined, called. Okay. What's next in the chain? Okay. Those he called, he also justified. That means you stand righteous before God. You stand righteous. Yeah, I know you've done some grody things, and so have I. Welcome to the club, right? I mean, whatever. It's not a happy club, but we're justified before God, right? And then the next in the chain, and those he justified, he also glorified. Foreknown, predestined, called, justified, glorified. And then the glorious summation, then what shall we say against these things? If God is for us, who is against us? So we're looking around. It's like a God is for you. Is the economy against you? I mean, it may feel like it, but is it ultimately right? Oh, God's for me. Okay. What about, I don't know, stability? There's wars. What about sickness, sin, and death? What about the demonic, whatever you call that? What? Okay. Yeah, but God's for me. So, oh, nothing against me. Compared to God, zippo. Do you understand me? Right? What shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? He that did not spare his son, but delivered him for us all, how shall he not freely with him give us all things? Give us all things. So what do you need? All means all. So what do you need? Okay, do you need to be hitched up to a different economy rather than the economies of this world? Do you need to be hitched up to a different government other than hallelujah, the governments of this world, right? Do you need to get hitched up to another physical reality in your body than the physical reality manifesting in this world? See, if God be for you, who can be against you? Right? So this is what we're getting our heads around, because he foreknew you, right? He predestined you. That means it's going to happen. It's a thing. He called you, he justified you, and he glorified you. And is this glorification that's working its way out from the inside out, right? Right? That is the apokatastasis. This is the Acts 3:21. I'm reading this from the New Revised Standard Version, Updated Edition. It's such a long title, but I want to be accurate. It's talking about the Christ who must remain in heaven until the time of universal restoration that God announced long ago through his holy prophets. Now, this is Acts 3:21. This is post-cross. So there's a time of universal restoration. That means, let me help you, restoration of the universe. Okay, let me help you. The restoration of the all things. Are you in the universe? Okay, you get to be restored. How sweeping is it? It's the universe. So what's outside the universe? Well, I guess it's anything that's outside of Christ, which is nothing. Okay. Okay. The Passion translations for he must remain in heaven until the restoration of all things has taken place, fulfilling everything that God said long ago through his holy prophets. See, his holy prophets were tracking to something. They just weren't quite got their heads around what they were tracking, but they belched it out and they said it and they got it right. And they're like, oh, what was that? Wow, that was God. I don't fully understand it. And we're still working it out, which is beautiful. Okay, it's the time of universal restoration. Brian Simmons frames it this way. This one of the heavens must receive until the times of universal restoration. That means the word restoration is the word apokatastasis, which infers the restoration of creation in the state of existence before the fall. But also the Davidic covenant being restored. Luke's choice of the Greek word found only here in the New Testament is noteworthy. It is a medical term that means restoration of perfect health. Restoration of perfect health. Perfect health in our minds, mind of Christ. Perfect restoration in our wills. We say 100% of the time yes to what God says yes to, and no to what God says no to. Restoration of our emotions, all the way in our conscious realm, our subconscious realm, where our emotions are tracking with the emotions of Christ. See, Christ is not traumatized, but Christ knows what it means to be traumatized in his humanity, which was in union with our humanity as a human race. He understands that, but he transcended that, right? Our minds, wills, emotions, our bodies, what's not of his glorified body, we get glorified bodies, and we get first fruits here, right? Where death has been defeated. What about restoration in relationships? He prayed that we would be one as he and the Father are one, him and us and him, that the glory that he received would become our glory. Glory is just astounding, right? This is the restoration. And so we're in process. This is why we're commanded to forgive. Maybe it's not appropriate to reconcile. Reconciliation ultimately, but some things are too pathological to reconcile with, and we just need wisdom. We need to walk this out in wisdom where we're at. What about our finances, right? Where he provides for all of our needs. Well, what's your need? According to his riches and glory. So it's a yardstick of his riches and glory. So how glorious, how much vast wealth is that? Okay. It's not a means to an end, but it is necessary that we're not to operate in lack, because we've got the treasuries of heaven. But where we mess up is we kind of get into greed. It's just a thing. Okay. So, it's a slippery slope, but we need to get our beings around this, because God says this is the least of the treasures of heaven. So we got to get the wealth thing worked out, all the restoration of all things. What about the restoration of the planet that is broken, polluted, whatever we're talking about with climate change? I don't want to get into a debate there. But the planet's not doing well. We just got done with this huge hurricane. Yes, I've heard of the conspiracy theories. I'm not weighing in on that. Whatever that is, because there's brokenness there of human sort, of physical created matter sort, whatever it is, it gets to be restored, right? And then there's an inevitability, the restoration of all things. This is glorious summation, and he's doing it in us, and he's doing it through us, right? This is the unveiling of the sons and daughters, still in Romans 8, through which creation is released from its bondage. Well, are you part of creation? Well, let me just say this. As I'm ministering this word, and others are ministering the word, and you get the word ministered to you, and you're ministering the word, all of this stuff, that what God, as the word is being ministered to, it is literally unveiling his sons and daughters, because we're gazing at God as if he in a mirror, at his spirit, and we've been conformed and configured and transformed and transfigured into his image from glory to glory to glory. And this creation is released from its bondage. You're being released from your bondage, and creation is being released from its bondage. And this is inevitable. It's the unstoppableness of God, and it's the unstoppableness of us as we operate from our union and our oneness as sons and daughters, that we become unstoppable because we look just like God in our flavor. And there's a transcendence that he's taking us to. And this is our finest time. The worse things get, the more we get to mount up. But we've got to keep our eyes fixed on Jesus. We're looking at the winds and the waves. And let me tell you, winds and waves can take you out if we're not looking at Jesus. And we all needed help looking at Jesus. Remember when I was talking about, when I was delivering my children, to something in the natural that every woman who's born a child in some degree has suffered to some extent. Some people do it a lot better than me. Okay. And I'm no wuss. Okay. But I needed someone to come alongside me as I was so getting taken with the pain. I need coaches around me to point to Christ's inevitability of this child being birthed in this seen realm. Okay. See, getting our eyes. So we need one another to coach one another, to midwife one another, right? I needed my husband holding my hand saying, keep going, honey, you can do it, right? And this is what we need. So we need humility, because sometimes we get weighed down, we get broadsided. And if that's you, that's okay. But it's just part of the process. So we get to be unstoppable, even in the weakness of our frame. You know, the weakness of our frame is we just tend to forget. We tend to forget the last thing that God did for us, or maybe the last 10 things God did for us. And we need to remind ourselves. This is why the Israelites set up memorial stones. This is why, we have things like communion to remind ourselves, right? These are things handed down by church fathers and mothers so that we could partake of something that is of supernatural truth as manifested in physical form, right? And all of these things, the different things that we do in terms of wedding covenants and communion and all the different practices that are of eternal value. Do this in remembrance of me. Christ, this is who you are. This is what you did. Death is defeated. I'm one with you. Raise me up in that. This is why those things matter. They're not just symbolic, they are symbolic, but they transcend you in a spiritual manner where you identify with what's true of Christ, of you. And we partake of him. So important, so good, so life-giving. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 13, 7 through 8a. I'm reading this from the Amplified Classic Version. It says, love, so God is love, 1 John 4, 8 and 16. God, or love, bears up under anything and everything that comes. Unstoppable, right? Is ever ready, always ready to believe the best of every person. Why do you think that's true? Now, not that we'll always do the best. Sometimes we just are betraying people, right? Okay. But that's not who we are. The best of us is who he created us to be. And in his mastery at conforming us into the image of Christ, that's what he is tracking with, right? Its hopes are fadeless under all circumstance, and it endures everything without weakening. Love never fails, fades out, or becomes obsolete, or comes to an end. That is you. That is Christ in you. And that is why you have such hope of glory. He's unstoppable. Therefore, you're unstoppable. Hope this was a blessing. Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Perspectives with Catherine Toon. For additional information and resources, please visit catherinetoon.com.